Welcome to the Driven to Succeed Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Olson. And today I have a very special guest in Alyssa Carlson, the Director of Strategic Planning at
Mhm.
Engel Volkers.
It
Welcome to the
is.
show, Alyssa.
Thank you. It is awesome to be here. The setup is great. It really feels official and fun. And I'm just ready to have a conversation.
Awesome. It took us a minute to get to this stage,
But
trust
we
me.
got here.
We had some black curtains behind us at one point and tables, and we were like, but hey, I'm glad they're here. I'm glad
I'm happy to
you
be here.
to go through a little bit of an interview today.
Love it.
Awesome. So tell me, what specifically is the Director of Strategic Planning?
I love that question because it to some people can feel a little ambiguous. And I think that is a little bit of the point of it too. Not the point, I shouldn't say, but it covers a wide breadth of things. So it really at the heart of what it is just looking for opportunities for our brokerage with strategic partnerships, with community involvement with different areas of the industry that we can get involved in. It really is to get Engel Volkers into all the right rooms around the Twin Cities and really beyond. We have an office down in Rochester too. So there is a lot of opportunity out there, and it's just finding the people that we are aligned with as a brokerage and seeing what kinds of partnerships and, opportunities in the industry we can pull into the brokerage to create more opportunities for our advisors.
That's fantastic. Being in this industry for the last 10 years and now starting to really see the companies have to differentiate themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Like EXPs of the world,
Yeah.
and you can't just be the Century 21, the Edina Realty, and
Yes.
so forth. They're bad, not that they're bad
Totally.
companies, but I do see the companies are starting to identify themselves more. And Engel Volkers is a very niche, so to speak, right? Sometimes people think it's way high end, but it's everything, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it also works with the commercial side, right?
Yes.
But your real focus is literally what do you want to call it? The red carpet, the white
Yeah.
glove, right?
Yes. Yep. The alignment with, what our brokers or advisors are so involved in their individual communities. A lot of them will say, I don't really specialize. I, service the full metro area, or I'll go as far up as Princeton or St. Cloud or whatever. And we have a listing right now on Leech Lake up in Walker, Minnesota, which I also have a cabin on. So, or my family does, I
I'm
should say.
jealous.
It is a beautiful spot. But so diversifying, where we are at in the industry. We, like I said, have an office down in Rochester too, and our managing broker down there, he also co-owns a custom home building company with his dad, and they have some cool, development projects that are coming. So it's looking at, what are the alignments that maybe already are there, or what desires are there for alignments that our advisors might have, and that includes the commercial division. It includes, development. Development is huge. And development is also a very broad, sweeping word. I think it's okay for it to be that because it also leaves room for, how do we want to play in development? Is it working in multifamily infill projects? Is it working with custom home builders? Is it working with, the commercial sector to look at how they're diversifying in the industry to say, we can't just develop these, single level, mostly parking lot, lots anymore. It has to be diversified. What kind of experience are we creating for people? So it's looking at how the industry is changing and growing and evolving and figuring out how are we a part of that now? How do we want to be a part of that? What opportunities align with that? And then that could be aligning with a coffee company that's really involved with a certain part of the community that's connected with a lot of people that, are involved in different industries. Real estate touches everything. I mean, you know that. And so, yeah, just finding the cultures that we align with as a brokerage and being really creative and looking at how can we, really be this market leader for, Minneapolis and beyond, really Minnesota. England Volkers Minneapolis has made an amazing name for themselves on a national level already. And I think that's based on the intentionality of our managing brokers, of the advisors that come in. A lot of the advisors have been with the brokerage for 8+ years. And we have a guest.
Yes, the co-host shows up. Yeah,
I love
to
it.
be
I
left
love
out.
it. Anyway, sometimes you might have to cut me off because I love talking about this stuff, and I feel really excited about all the, possibilities that lie in the
Well,
future.
I mean, this is a very exciting, like, I think of, I love my job, right? But looking at what you have and like all of the different people you will be able to get to, contact and
Yes.
touch and like, you start talking to different companies, I get jealous because like, oh, this company likes to do these sporting events or these, they do this and you're in the front of that. So and that's awesome. Anyway, to get back on track though,
Yes.
so is it fair to say that your specific job is really to reach out to these companies and start the initial talks and then pair them with the right brokers and like
Totally.
agents and so forth?
Yep, yep. And it could be, partnering with an organization that, needs a space to hold an event. And so we can offer up our, space similar to, how you work in the industry sometimes of, creating a space for people to gather. So it's looking at opportunities, both creative and maybe direct, that are, yes, we want to connect with them, maybe have their company come in and speak to our advisors. That's a pretty standard thing in our industry, but also looking at what other creative opportunities there are to partner with people, maybe on events that they're hosting or on initiatives that they're involved in, and just really getting involved with the community. Minneapolis and really Minnesota at large is so community driven, and it has a very local feel, and people put a lot of value on that, and our advisors are so involved throughout the community. And so it's not like I'm necessarily reinventing the wheel. It's going to be some new ideas, but also taking the foundation of what our advisors are involved in, what they've already, put out into the industry, and maybe looking at how we can bring some more support to that too.
That's fantastic. So I come from being, a career in sales, right?
Yeah.
I started in car sales. Well, actually started in cell phone sales in college.
Yeah.
Went to car sales, and then went into finance, and then got into mortgage. And I always said mortgage was not a sales. I don't think it is sales
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to, charge somebody more for a product or do this.
Yep.
It is sales,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I always feel like I assist people, right?
Yeah.
But going back to what you're building or what Engel and Volkers has built, and like getting to the point of where being a salesperson and just really making that connection with a client is more than the sales part, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that's where the real focus is,
Yeah.
and that's what separates, the different companies. And
Yes.
there's a different you know, brokers, real estate companies that do tons of like Zillow leads and
Totally.
online
Yep.
leads.
Yep.
And I mean, you still give those people good, and I think that community outreach and doing the things, and that's where, I mean, you're getting a whole new set of people that love to see that.
Yeah.
That's why they, will gravitate towards those types of
Yes.
agents
Yep.
and
And
so
that's, I mean, why I wanted to join England Volkers. You know, I know we'll talk about this, but I've had, a career in real estate that has spanned from commercial development, residential development. I've done consulting. So I've worked with a lot of different kind of brokerages and brokers, custom home builders, et cetera. And I just think what Engel Volkers has, and I've, granted been exposed to the local level, and I feel like that very much informs the national and international level of the brokerage. But the people are so intentional, and I think that goes a long way in how they service their clients, how they service the industry. I believe what you put out there into the universe, whatever you want to call it, is what you attract back to you. And I think there's a lot of good people at our brokerage. So
yeah. And do you feel like that, well, I mean, hitting on it again, the consumer wants more of that personal experience,
yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And that's why, I mean, that's why the focus is there.
Yes, yep. And they have a level of service and intentionality, whether, they're helping someone buy and sell $100,000 condo or $100 million house. Now, granted, those products are very different. But the intentionality and how they're servicing people and giving, almost a luxury experience at any price point, I think has to involve a lot of intentionality. I think people look at, oh, you have to be really invested and, have this super high level of service once you get into these like high ultra luxe, clients and products and et cetera. And like, yes, that's true. That does take an extra level of intentionality, but to be able to service clients in the whole breadth of it with the same level of intentional service is very unique in the industry. Yeah.
Awesome. How would you say like people that may want to like maybe even see this episode and
Yeah.
they want to reach out or they think, hey, maybe we could do something,
Yeah.
you know, what would you, how does that look, I guess, like for that relationship to start?
I mean, it can be an email, it could be a
It's just-
DM on Instagram, like it could, yeah, it could
It-
be whatever it is. Cause my approach to, I guess if you want to call it networking, is
right,
you just want to connect with good people. And I feel like I've found a really great group of people, or I know I have at Engel Volkers. And as you approach connections, I mean, when I first connected with Lindsay, one of the managing brokers, she and I just connected for a coffee. And after we left that meeting, we both kind of said, there's something here. I don't know what it is. It could just be we're going to be really great friends. It could be
right,
there's a, business connection or something. But the amount of meetings that I've left just saying, I don't know what there is here, but I feel like there's synergy between us. Let's stay in contact and
right.
let's see what could happen in the future. And for this particular relationship with Lindsay and now Jeff at Engel Volkers, it progressed into a job that I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And so, with the same approach to partnerships, connecting with people, you just have to find people I think that you have those synergies with and then see what you can make happen.
Exactly. And that's where, when you grow a partnership and it's, obviously you want a partnership to be a win-win, right?
Yeah.
So like how
Yes.
how can we partner with this company, provide our services to help them either grow their business or grow their reach
Yeah.
or, whatever they have to do,
Absolutely.
right? So
Yes.
that's where you come in and
Yeah, because
yes,
it brings creative solutions into our brokerage, but then we also are providing hopefully extra exposure for them. We're getting them likewise in front of an audience that they may want to get in front of. And so when you find those alignments with people, it almost should be like an effortless process. Not effortless, but you just things will unfold as they should. Yeah.
right. I like to say it's effortless, right?
Yeah,
There's a
yes,
lot
but
of
it
effort
does take
behind
work.
it.
Yes, yes, it does take work, but I think when you find the right people, it feels less like work and more just like let's see what we can make happen.
Right.
Yeah,
So what in your past or what was your journey to like how did you like get from yeah, I think you went to University of Wisconsin Stout, right?
I did. Yes.
Right.
Yep, yep.
Um,
I grew up in Minneapolis, friendly Fridley, Minnesota,
okay.
and then yeah, did my undergrad at Stout, and I actually studied hospitality and tourism. So I wanted to go into country club management. The real thing was when I was 18, I thought I wanted to be a wedding planner. And so did a lot of girls my age. And
Right.
so quickly I wanted to pivot. But the reason I got into hospitality or pursued that was because I wanted a career that was, working with people and serving people in some way. And that maybe sounds a little over glorified. It was just something I just love bringing people together. And so I worked in hospitality for several years after graduating and then made a pivot. It was about back in 2018, I think, after owning my first piece of real estate and renting out a bedroom on Airbnb. And that was to pay off some college debt. And that really switched my thinking to, oh, real estate, it's this, asset that you have that can do things for you. That's how simple it was. My first exposure to the real estate industry. And from there, it just kind of set a flame for me of, I found bigger pockets, which a lot of people do about real estate investing. And so that kind of snowballed into me connecting with a commercial real estate developer in Colorado Springs, which is where I was living at the time. And I just was crazy for the industry pretty right away. And in commercial development, I saw it's very motivated by, you're working with investors and the MO in that is, what is the return going to be as quickly as possible for them, which absolutely makes sense. But it gave me a curiosity for residential development because I felt like there was more of a story there, because it's involving people's homes and which also gave me a unique perspective on the commercial industry because I think there absolutely should be a story in commercial and commercial development, et cetera, as well. Anyway, so that's really how that real estate career started for me. And then I continued to work in residential development. I love development because it is focusing on, how is the community growing and expanding? And I think there's no industry that's more influential in how communities and cities grow and develop than real estate. Real estate developers in particular, if they find a plot of land, they can say, I'm going to turn this into something. And they're saying, I want to rezone it for this. I want to, here's my vision for this. And as that compounds on itself, whether it's residential or commercial, that's what's changing and growing communities. And I think from growing up in Minneapolis, where it is so community driven here and community focused, I think that's a part of what latched me on to the industry. And so from there, it's just been, I've done a series of consulting with, yeah, custom home builders or small real estate groups or brokerages or kind of just anything in the industry, developers, et cetera. And that gave me a diverse experience really in different markets too, because I was working with people in New York and Atlanta and Seattle and Colorado and
It
yeah,
seems like you've
yeah,
been very diverse, right?
yeah,
Do you sleep?
yeah. Well, a lot of my friends will tell you that I need to sleep more, and I
Right.
would probably agree with that. But yeah,
Well,
I mean, it's been very energizing
right.
for me. Yeah.
Well, it's when you find something you really are passionate about and love, it's easy to just go all in, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's so easy to do that. It's
Yeah.
when you start to hate that thing, then it's hard, right? But
Absolutely. Yeah.
you hit on something that, the commercial so many people are focused on the residential side, right?
Yeah.
And I think the commercial space is going to be changing drastically. It's
Absolutely.
already been
It
changing.
already has. Yeah.
It's going to be changing drastically over the next 10 years. What do you see in that? And I guess the follow-up question is like, how do more people get into like looking at that
Yeah.
opportunities,
Yep. I think just like keeping your mind open to, what ways is the industry growing and developing. And not everybody's going to want to be involved in commercial. Not everyone's going to want to be involved in industrial. And that's fine. I mean, you can find your lane and you can stick in it. But if you're looking for, ways to diversify your experience in the real estate industry, I think commercial is a huge opportunity. And Engel and Volkers has been putting a lot of, just even from a, international, national corporate level, has been putting a lot of attention on development and commercial in particular. And so now that's translated down to us I shouldn't say down, but to us at the local level where we have brokers now in our brokerage that are going to start to focus on commercial, which is, I think, really exciting because what I've seen in the industry is that there's more creative thinking coming into the commercial space. And commercial real estate is almost always connected to development just because if it's an old strip mall that's been sitting, and it's kind of dead, you have to reimagine that plot of land. And a lot of the times commercial takes up a lot of physical space. And so that's where I see a lot of, sustainability has been a huge thing, sustainable development, passive homes, et cetera. And I think in the commercial division, I'm seeing a lot of people start to think creatively about what their commercial spaces will look like. And from a, speaking layman's terms, I guess, when you think about a strip mall, that's a commercial development, right? And it's
right,
a single story development. And most of the land, if you look at it from an aerial perspective, is parking lot.
right.
And that has effects on the environment because it's, paving something. And so seeing a lot more creativity for, okay, this plot of land, it's almost like we have to steward this land. And how can we get more creative for creating a space that's not just like a single story commercial development? It's mixed use. It has maybe apartments up top, senior living is a huge thing in the development space now too. So maybe it's looking at, okay, if this is going to be a senior facility, what maybe commercial tenants on our first floor of this are going to serve that community? How can we bring in green spaces into our development? How can we bring in more trees? A lot of people have dogs. How can we, service that? So no longer just, I shouldn't say no longer, but I'm seeing more diversity in how commercial real estate, is thinking. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, it's, trying to I'm so busy wrapping my head around just technology and the tech
Yeah.
side and what I'm
Which
trying
is
to
also a
build
huge
and
thing.
like,
Yeah.
but to hear the different perspectives on like that. And
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, as you drive through these neighborhoods, in towns around Minneapolis or cities around Minneapolis, and you see these older strip malls that maybe two or three are empty,
Yeah.
and you
Yep.
got a corner one that's always been there, a staple. And
Yeah.
how do I suppose somebody owns all that and they're
Yes.
leasing all these spaces and now they want to sell that. And
Yeah.
how do you then go about changing that?
Yes.
Is there, are there, so, from, in the real estate, when you talked about hitting on, okay, residential, getting in
Yeah.
investors, like you can start in these investor groups and you can
Yep.
be part of buying a couple homes
Yeah.
and right and so forth. Is there that opportunity in the commercial
It's
space?
a really good question. I've heard whispers of that. I think there's a lot of I've also seen a trend in funds that have been started where it's, people starting up a syndication fund so that you can, give $10,000 to this project and then you can be an investor in, these multifamily developments. And that's definitely more on the residential side. But sometimes in these multifamily developments, they're looking at commercial spaces too. So it's, from an investment standpoint, there's been a big push in the industry where there's still definitely like you need to be an accredited investor to
Right.
invest in this project, but
Right.
also creating more opportunities for people who maybe have $10,000 that they want to invest, maybe even $5,000,
Right.
depending on what the fund looks like, for people to diversify their investment strategies and get involved in real estate in a sense, but still in a very passive way.
Passive way.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I feel like especially in COVID, there was a big kick when interest rates were really low and people were, I mean, I was a part of that growth of having properties, owning properties that were rented on Airbnb and that, had a lot of people reaching out of, I'd love to pick your brain on how this works. And it's like, well, there's a lot to getting started in real estate investing. So I think there's a lot of diverse components that are coming into the industry to make it more available to people in a way. And I think that will also gradually, transfer over to the commercial space too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This is great. This is great information for people, right?
Yeah.
You can find a lot of things on YouTube and you can
Yes.
find,
Yep.
I educate myself on YouTube
Yeah.
all the time, right?
Yep.
But this information, I mean, you sound definitely like you've been in it for a long enough time. You can really speak very quite well to it. Now going back to what makes, a little bit about you,
Yeah.
like what makes you tick, like obviously we see your passion for this
Yeah.
and your excitement for your opportunity here at Engel and Volkers.
Yes.
But what else is like what else does Alyssa live in her life or like what are things?
I think what's so fun about this is like everything that I'm talking about also feels very integrated into just how I guess I run my life. Where, and I think that's why I feel so connected to, if you want to call it my career or, the industry that I'm working in, is with this focus on community. I think that translates to my personal life where it's like I just like to get involved with people and things that are doing, cool things around the city. I live right downtown Minneapolis and it, is good access into the North Loop, which I'm just, a little obsessed with in terms of how that area has developed. Because something we haven't talked about is I lived in Colorado for 10 years. So
Right.
I was away for a while and coming back, I mean, the North Loop wasn't a thing when I lived here or when I was growing up here, and to see how in this development area there's pharmacies, there's vets, there's fast casual restaurants as well as fine dining restaurants, there's dental offices, there's just grocery stores, there's diversity in that development. And for it being in a city and it's right on the river, it's like no wonder it's one of the gems in Minneapolis.
Yeah,
And
I lived in Minneapolis over the last 20 years, I should say.
yeah,
And I lived in Uptown,
yeah,
lived in Northeast,
yeah,
Southeast even. Never got to North Loop. I moved out of Minneapolis before that, but I mean, yeah, watching North Loop grow up,
yes,
and go from warehouse district to the
yeah.
North Loop.
And people
Um,
love it there and they're committed to that
right,
community. So there's the North Loop Association meeting. There's so many different ways you can just get involved with the community. And I think that brings me a lot of richness to my life too,
sure.
because it's whether, it's an event that's being held at one of the gyms that I go to, and there's a, coffee company that's, hosting some coffee in the morning. And there's really cool people that run the gym, cool people that run this coffee company. And they just getting involved with that stuff is really fun. And you'll find that I think there's little pockets everywhere. And honestly, like I love browsing Facebook for events.
Yeah.
I am not a big Facebook user, but every business will put their events out on
Right.
Facebook. And so there's just like, I love going to breweries. I love, like last night, one of my friends was playing an open mic night at Sociable Cider Works. And so a bunch of girlfriends went together to,
Awesome.
watch her. And yeah, I live down by the river. I love to run. I love to bike. I, love going to farmers markets. I don't know. I definitely describe myself as more of a city girl. But yes, like I mentioned, my family also has a cabin up north.
Yeah.
So that's a
Right.
fun balance too.
Right. That's a
Yeah.
great balance.
Yep.
I love the river. I think we were talking, I had a boat on the St. Croix River,
Yeah.
but even when I lived on in right along the river in St. Anthony in Maine, I mean, that was a
Yeah.
fun time and it was
Yes.
nice. And you know, the area has very nice little businesses,
Yes.
that's the nice thing too, is that you have a big staple like Whole Foods, but I
Yep.
think it's Whole Foods down there, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's Whole Foods. But then you have like a lot of just boutique businesses, is
Yes.
maybe mom and pops, you'd sort of call it,
Minneapolis
but
loves their local
yes,
business. Yes.
yes,
I mean, even really Minnesota at large, but yeah.
right,
Yep.
right. Awesome. Well, Alyssa, I mean, it's been a fantastic interview. I can't wait to discuss more opportunities with you and any way I can help you get your name out and this out is, definitely worthwhile.
Yeah.
But I really want to thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah.
I want people to like and subscribe. Please reach out if you want to help your business and you want to think about strategic planning and maybe growing,
Yeah.
please reach out to Alyssa.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
We'll have all our contact information below, but please like and subscribe. And thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. This has been a blast. The time went by so fast. It was
Right.
just a great conversation. And if Brandon asked you to be on this podcast, just say yes. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.